Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, the 98th plenary meeting of the General Assembly is called to order. The General Assembly will resume consideration of Agenda Item 35, entitled Protracted Conflicts in the Guam Area and Their Implications for International Peace, Security, and Development. In connection with this item, the Assembly has before it a draft resolution issued as Document A/72/L.58. I now give the floor to His Excellency Tudor Ulianovsky, Minister for Foreign Affairs and European Integration of the Republic of Moldova, to introduce Draft Resolution A/72/L.58.
I thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. The draft resolution I have the honor to introduce today under the General Assembly's Agenda Item 35 focuses on a pressing legal and political issue against the background of a protracted conflict externally generated in the eastern part of the Republic of Moldova. It addresses a matter of fundamental concern for my country. Almost 27 years after regaining its independence and 26 years after it became a UN member state, still the operational group of Russian forces, OGRF, and its armaments are still stationed on the territory of the Republic of Moldova without its consent. The continued presence of foreign military forces and armaments on the territory of the Republic of Moldova against its express wish is not only incompatible with its independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and permanent neutrality, but it is also entirely incompatible with the rules of international law and of the ones of the UN Charter. Mr. President, the presence of any foreign troops on the internationally recognized territory of any UN member state without its consent and against its express wish constitutes a grave breach of the UN Charter and of the rules and principles that govern international relations. The UN Charter and the international law are very clear on this account and leave no room for interpretation based on the circumstantial interests of any given member state. This is, Mr. President, the main message sent also by all resolutions adopted in the past by the UN Security Council and General Assembly on the unlawful military presence on the territories of a UN member state. The continued presence of the operational group of Russian forces and its huge stockpiles of armaments on the territory of the Republic of Moldova should not be an exception to the foregoing international rules and principles. Accordingly, the proposed draft resolution reaffirms the need for all states to adhere strictly to the principles of UN Charter and recognizes that the continued stationing of Russian military forces and armaments on the territory of the Republic of Moldova without its consent violates its sovereignty and territorial integrity. And this is a problem that must be resolved in good faith, unconditionally, without further delay and in a peaceful manner. Mr. President, the obfuscated and circumstantial claim that the operational group of Russian forces' presence on the Moldovan soil is somehow legal in terms of the 1992 Moldovan-Russian ceasefire agreement is merely a distortion of the actual content of that document. The 1992 ceasefire agreement was not intended to and did not give any basic rights for the Russian military forces in the Republic of Moldova. It merely provided for specific conditions and tools to stop the violent clashes that occurred as a result of a concerted unlawful action aimed at denying the authorities of the newly independent state to exercise the constitutional control over the eastern part of the country. One of those tools was the creation of a Joint Control Commission, JCC, empowered with military contingents, labeled later on improperly as peacekeeping, that were provided by the parties to the conflict, including the Russian Federation. The recurring discreditable narrative of the operational group of Russian forces' role, and I quote, as a guarantor of peace and stability in the Republic of Moldova, end quote, subtly implies that the OGRF might have a certain peacekeeping role that makes it undistinguishable from the rotating Russian contingent, which participates in the military component of the Joint Control Commission. However, the truth is that the operational group of Russian forces has nothing to do with the JCC military component. There are no legal grounds for OGRF to be considered part of that component, and there are no legal grounds whatsoever for OGRF's continued presence in the Republic of Moldova. For the sake of clarity, the draft resolution clearly distinguishes between the Russian rotating contingent operating under the JCC military component and the operational group of Russian forces, and further stresses that the OGRF has not been entrusted with any peacekeeping or any other legal mandate. Still in this context, let me underline that the JCC's military component has long ago fulfilled its scope. This obsolete mechanism has turned into a factor of conflict preservation and has failed to ensure the full demilitarization of the security zone. This is why the Republic of Moldova has repeatedly called within the OSCE framework for its transformation into a neutral, multinational civilian mission with an international mandate. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the situation I just presented cannot be downplayed and casually defined as an outstanding matter that arises from the implementation or non-implementation of the signed but not ratified 1992 Moldovan-Russian ceasefire agreement. This protracted situation is now almost 27 years old and cannot be euphemistically characterized as a purely bilateral issue between the two UN member states. The need for an early, orderly and complete withdrawal of Russian troops and armaments from the territory of the Republic of Moldova has been emphasized in many consensual OSCE ministerial declarations and related UN General Assembly resolutions, documents that the Russian Federation also subscribed to or co-sponsored. As a signatory of the 1999 OSCE Summit outcome document, the Russian Federation legally committed itself to complete withdrawal of its troops and armaments by the end of 2002. Despite concerns about the speed and transparency of the withdrawal process, the uneven progress achieved by the Russian Federation between 2001 and 2002 was noted, and its self-commitment to complete the orderly withdrawal of its troops and armaments by December 31, 2003 was included in the Porto OSCE ministerial statement. Responding in good faith to the Russian Federation's technical requirements pertaining to the orderly withdrawal within the new deadline expressed by the wording "provided necessary conditions are in place," the participating states of the OSCE agreed to continue their support for withdrawal of Russian troops and disposal of ammunition by appropriate measures, including through additional contributions to a voluntary fund established for that purpose. At the beginning of 2004, the process of withdrawal has been completely seized on the grounds that are both legally and politically untenable. The rigid conditionality by the Russian Federation that the OGRF's withdrawal shall be synchronized with and finalized only after the settlement of the protracted political conflict in the eastern part of the country is both illegitimate and unacceptable. The foreign troops withdrawal and the conflict resolution process are totally different issues and cannot be linked, and one should not be a condition for the other. The Transnistrian issue is a matter that falls within the domestic jurisdiction of the Republic of Moldova. The international conflict settlement mechanism in place is mandated to facilitate, in conditions of neutrality and non-interference in the internal affairs, a political solution based on full respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Republic of Moldova. The adopted consensual OSCE ministerial declarations explicitly stressed that progress on the withdrawal of the Russian troops and armaments cannot be linked to any other question with due regard to existing agreements. The references to the 2002 Porto OSCE ministerial declaration that contained technical wording related to the orderly aspect of the next stage of withdrawal process are out of context. As was agreed by all parties involved in the negotiation of that statement, the wording necessary conditions used in the context of orderly withdrawal refers solely to the technical arrangements and shall in no way be applied to any political circumstances. Nor the 2002 Porto OSCE ministerial declaration, neither other agreed documents stipulate a mandate for the operational group of Russian forces to indefinitely guard in the eastern part of the country its huge amount of armaments, around 21,000 metric tons of munition, or to provide assistance and security guarantees to the unconstitutional power structures created there after the signing of the 1992 ceasefire agreement. Let me remind here, distinguished delegates, that the Moldovan Constitution expressly prohibits the stationing of foreign troops on the national territory. In view of this absolute prohibition, no exceptions are allowed whatsoever. The rigid and continued conditionality by the Russian Federation that the OGRF's withdrawal shall be synchronized with the settlement of an internal political issue clearly contradicts the internationally accepted principles as enshrined in the UN Charter in the 1970 Declaration on Principles of International Law concerning friendly relations and cooperation among states, and indeed in all other documents adopted by the UN with a view to uphold the sovereign equality. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, the proposed draft resolution cannot be portrayed, and I quote, as an unfriendly action towards another UN member state, or as an attempt to move discussion elsewhere. The proposed draft resolution seeks to consolidate the support of the UN towards a member state whose sovereignty and territorial integrity is undermined by the continued illegal military presence of another member state. The increase in scope and frequency of the illegal joint military exercises of the operational group of Russian forces with the paramilitaries of the unconstitutional power structures in the eastern part of the country is nothing else than a continuous violation of the 1992 ceasefire agreement that contains an explicit legal binding commitment to ensure the neutrality of Russian forces. Aiming at upgrading the military offensive capacity of unconstitutional power structures, the illegal joint military exercises undermine the international efforts aimed at the peaceful resolution of the protracted Transnistrian problem. The Republic of Moldova, echoed by other OSCE member states, repeatedly expressed its deep concern in regard to these unlawful and destabilizing activities that run contrary to the obligations of the Russian Federation in the framework of the 5+2 international settlement format. We cannot but disagree, Mr. President, with the characterization given by the opponent of this draft resolution that the Moldovan initiative is confrontational by its nature and represents a potential source of open tension in the southeastern Europe. On the contrary, the OGRF's continued illegal presence and its unauthorized and provocative military activities on foreign soil befits that description and can also be identified as unlawful under the terms of Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the UN Charter. Mr. President, through its declaration of July 21st, 2017, distributed subsequently to the UN membership as an official document of the General Assembly and the Security Council, the Parliament of the Republic of Moldova reaffirmed and re-emphasized the long-held official Moldovan position that the unauthorized continued stationing of foreign troops in the eastern part of the country constitute, quote, violations of the constitutional provisions as well as of the international law. The Parliament has also reiterated its calls for the resumption and conclusion of the withdrawal process of Russian forces, particularly of the huge quantities of arms and munitions, which by their continued presence on the territory of the Republic of Moldova. While located on the territory of the Republic of Moldova, those weapons and munitions are not under its jurisdiction or control. Due to complete lack of transparency and access to foreign weapons and munitions, both the Moldovan government and the OSCE are effectively prevented to assess the technical conditions of those munitions, some of which may pose substantial environmental danger, or to monitor weapons and munitions transfers within its territory or abroad. For the same reasons, the Republic of Moldova is unable to fulfill its international obligations as a state party under various UN and international disarmament conventions, particularly those that ban certain categories of weapons. This situation, distinguished delegates, is of international character and shall not be allowed to persist. The government of the Republic of Moldova and the Prime Minister of the Republic of Moldova, Mr. Pavel Filip, has repeatedly apprised the UN General Assembly and the high contracted parties to respective conventions of its concerns in that regard. It is also against this background that the proposed resolution, in its operative part, urges the Russian Federation to complete orderly, unconditionally, and without further delay the withdrawal of the operational group of Russian forces and its armaments from the territory of the Republic of Moldova, and further encourages the OSCE participating states to facilitate the completion of the process of withdrawal in accordance with the relevant OSCE ministerial decisions and as agreed at the OSCE Istanbul Summit in 1999. Mr. President, the draft resolution requests in its last operative paragraph the inclusion in the provisional agenda of the 73rd session of the General Assembly an item entitled Complete Withdrawal of Foreign Military Forces from the territory of the Republic of Moldova. The respective request fully complies with Article 11, Paragraph 2 of the UN Charter. An item on this issue and its subsequent constructive consideration by the General Assembly would constitute a highly needed application of preventive diplomacy vis-à-vis a UN member state whose sovereign rights under the UN Charter, territorial integrity and sovereignty are continuously challenged. Let me remind in this context that the Republic of Moldova requested the inclusion of a supplementary item with an identical title in the agenda of the current 72nd session of General Assembly. Despite our strenuous 2-month-long efforts to create premises for a consensual recommendation by the General Committee, and in the absence of any procedural objections on behalf of GC members, it was not yet possible to safeguard a procedural action fully compliant with the Rules 41 and 42 of the Rules of Procedure. We firmly believe that any amendments intended to change the title and substance of the proposed items or resolutions in a way that completely reverse their scope or by their political implications might undermine or violate UN member states' sovereignty and territorial integrity shall not constitute a subject of procedural action or consideration both in General Committee and in the UN General Assembly. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, by bringing before the UN General Assembly the issue of long-awaited withdrawal of foreign troops from the territory of the Republic of Moldova, we do not seek confrontation or politicization. It is a matter of high principle and of high political importance for every UN member state to fully exercise its legitimate rights and authority on its own territory. It is hoped that this initiative would enjoy the same support and constructive attitude on behalf of the UN member states as the similar GA resolutions adopted in 1992 and 1993 that contributed to the withdrawal of foreign military forces from the territories of Baltic states. The overarching purpose of the draft resolution A/72/L.58 before the Assembly today is to uphold the fundamental principles of the UN Charter. Therefore, distinguished delegates, a vote in favor of this resolution will not be a vote against any member state, but rather it will be a vote to uphold the UN Charter and the international law. Likewise, a vote against any motion that seeks to deny the consideration of the proposed draft resolution will be a vote to uphold the sovereign rights of the UN member states to bring before the General Assembly issues of legitimate concern that falls within its competence. In conclusion, Mr. President, on behalf of the government of the Republic of Moldova, let me express deep gratitude to the co-sponsors of the draft resolution A/72/L.58, which are Canada, Czech Republic, Estonia, Georgia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, United Kingdom, and Ukraine. Likewise, I wish to thank in advance all UN member states which will vote today in the spirit of international law and in the spirit of the UN Charter. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the Minister for Foreign Affairs and European Integration of the Republic of Moldova. I now give the floor on a point of order to the Russian Federation.
Господин председатель.
President, our delegation would like to propose an adjournment of the debate, also known as a no-action motion, as set forth in Rule 74 of the Rules of Procedure of the General Assembly. I would like to explain the reasons for this initiative. We are not shying away from discussing pressing issues of the Transnistrian solution. We actively support the relevant existing international formats. The main one of those is the negotiation process under the 5+2 formula launched in 2005. Our country is committed to the process of a political solution to the Transnistrian issue and is one of the mediators and guarantors of the resolution process. This format There was no alternative to this format. Contacts between parties within its framework allows us to gradually move towards a resolution which would be acceptable for all. It is vital to support a trust-based dialogue, mutual respect and a constructive outlook. We believe that recently there have been more grounds for optimism. Therefore, we were extremely disappointed and surprised to see that the Moldovan delegation so hastily threw this text before the General Assembly without holding any preliminary consultations on it. These odd working methods for a text do not allow us to achieve consensus and undermine the principles of openness and transparency, which the Assembly has committed to in its work. For this reason, we are convinced that, considering the issue on this draft resolution as proposed by Moldova, would be absolutely untimely and counterproductive today. There is another argument for the need to postpone the consideration of this Moldovan text. We have just heard an emotionally charged statement from the head of Moldova's Foreign Affairs Ministry backing today's vote. I won't comment on its content because this is a manner of a selective choosing of facts and skewed interpretation. Here, this is nothing new. I'd also note, though, that in his long speech he forgot to refer to one important point. Back at home, there is no consensus on the text for the vote today. Our colleague clearly has shied away from sharing with us the fact that, on the 19th of June, the President of Moldova, Igor Dodon, made a special address, sharply criticising the initiative of its government to take this text to the UN General Assembly. I won't quote his strident statement. This is a Moldovan issue. One thing is clear, though. The country is divided on this issue. And today we are unwillingly becoming accomplices to a PR exercise, produced first and foremost for internal political reasons. We believe that getting involved in such squabbles and infighting in the General Assembly will not strengthen its authority. If we talk about the substance of the draft before us today, this would in all likelihood play an extremely negative role in the negotiation process that I mentioned. Now, in this region, there is peace, albeit fragile peace. Many of you may remember the trouble in the 1990s in the Transnistrian conflict. And it was the action of the Russian military which allowed us to stop bloodshed in 1992. At that time, according to various assessments, from both sides, around 1,000 people died, and 4,500 were injured. Colossal damage was done to infrastructure and social facilities in the town of Bendera. I would like to highlight that in this region is the only one in Eastern Europe where, thanks to the arrival of Russian forces, fighting has not resumed. We are committed to fulfilling the Russian military mandate and the tasks of the joint peacekeeping operations in Dniester. Its presence in the Transnistrian region of Moldova, as is well known, seeks to ensure the protection of munitions storage located there, dating back to the Soviet times. Both of these components are a result of the unresolved nature of the conflict. We can't divide these issues. Fortunately, in recent times, there have been no type of emergency or urgent situation that would justify taking this topic to be considered at the UN. Its discussion should be held within existing bilateral international formats to resolve it, for resolving this issue. Attempts to politicize this could cause significant harm to this and significantly complicate the process of reconciliation between the Moldova and Transnistrian sides, and as a consequence make a regulation to this protracted conflict in Moldova less likely. We are ready for fruitful work based on the principles of sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Moldova. We expect the same from the Moldovan side, from the political will on which the successful stalling of this hangs. We call on Chișinău not to take a step that would undermine its effectiveness and to refrain from confrontational approaches. The draft resolution, unfortunately, is doing exactly that. President, I would like all delegates in the room to understand the responsibility on their shoulders. We do not want future efforts to address the Transnistrian issue be focused on overcoming the negative consequence of this text that is before your consideration. We understand that this initiative has caught many Moldovans by surprise. Can we really work on such an important and consequential text so hastily, without due discussion and without a confidence that it enjoys the necessary support from the country that has submitted it? For us, the answer is clear. This is not a situation on which the General Assembly should be taking a decision. This is why the best option today would be to postpone the discussion to the next session, with the understanding that the authors will invite all stakeholders to work on the text. Then together we'll be able to work on the necessary consensus so ensure it to be accepted by Moldova itself. I would like to believe that this approach will, in the end, prevail. Again, I'd like to clarify. Those who, after my statement, will vote for our proposal are not stifling the Moldovan text, but simply giving us an opportunity to work on it properly. We also in no way are trying to undermine the right of any state to to put questions of interest to it before the General Assembly. Thank you very much for your attention.
The representative of the Russian Federation has moved within the terms of Rule 74 of the Rules of Procedure that no action be taken on draft resolution A/72/L.58. Rule 74 reads as follows. During the discussion of any matter, a representative may move the adjournment of the debate on the item under discussion. In addition to the proposer of the motion, two representatives may speak in favor of and two against the motion, after which the motion shall be immediately put to vote. Does any member wish to speak? I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Ukraine. Ukraine, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The motion that has just been introduced seeks to prevent the General Assembly from fulfilling its mandate under the UN Charter. We believe that any motion to preclude discussions on issues related to respect for the UN Charter, sovereignty and territorial integrity of states are unjustified and undermine the authority and credibility of this body. And today's resolution, introduced by the distinguished Foreign Minister of Moldova, is exactly about that. The respect for the UN Charter, refusal of the Russian Federation to honor its international commitments and to withdraw its troops and armaments from the territory of the Republic of Moldova is a clear violation of Moldovan national legislation as well as international law. Here I would like to reiterate Ukraine's support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Republic of Moldova within its internationally recognized borders. My delegation will vote against the proposal just made by Russia and calls on other delegations to do likewise. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Ukraine. I now give the floor to the representative of Myanmar. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Myanmar believes that engagement and necessary consultations are important. Therefore, Myanmar supports Russia's proposal for a non-action motion on the draft resolution to adjourn consideration of this item for the next session of the UNGA. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Myanmar. I now give the floor to the representative of the Republic of Moldova.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I am taking the floor in strong objection to a proposal made by the delegation of the Russian Federation to adjourn the debate under the Rule 74 of the Rules of Procedures. This attempt to prevent the consideration of the resolution A/72/L58 on procedural grounds runs contrary to the good practice of the General Assembly. The calling for adjournment aims at denying the states members of the United Nations their sovereign right to bring before the General Assembly any concern that they themselves deem to merit its attention, and also at limiting the agenda of the Assembly. The proposal contradicts one of the ideas on which the creation of the United Nations was based, namely, the issue of legitimate concern of member states shall be addressed and discussed openly. Each proposal presented in the General Assembly, Mr. President, deserves consideration on its own merits. On behalf of the co-sponsor of the draft resolution A/72/L55, I strongly urge the member states to vote no to the proposed adjournment of the debate. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Republic of Moldova, and I now give the floor to the representative of Belarus. You have the floor.
Thank you, President. The Republic of Belarus supports the proposal to make a procedural decision to not consider this draft resolution that is before us today at the General Assembly under Agenda Item 35. Because of the issue of the substance of this issue, we would like to draw your attention to some procedural issues that could hindrance, in our view, making a decision on the resolution today. That is to say, this document was given to the Secretariat without the necessary time for discussion of the document. And also, there is no formal consultations with representatives of states on the text itself. We would not want such an approach which hinders the principles of transparency towards the rules of consideration of decisions in the general activity. We wouldn't want this to become practice in the work of this body. In our view, we should not set a precedent where decisions are made without the necessary involvement of all parties on the principle, take it or leave it. So, because of a lack of a negotiation process on this draft resolution and the possible procedural issues, we would support the proposal to take this off consideration for today. Thank you very much, President.
I shall now put to the recorded vote the motion submitted by the representative of the Russian Federation that no action be taken on draft resolution A/72/L.58. Those in favor of the motion, please signify. Against? Abstentions?
The General Assembly is now voting on the motion submitted by the representative of the Russian Federation that no action motion be taken on draft resolution A/72/L58. Will all delegations confirm that their votes are accurately reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 24, against, 80, abstentions, 48. The motion is not adopted. As the motion for no action is not adopted, the Assembly will proceed to take a decision on draft resolution A/72/L.58. Before giving the floor for explanations of vote before the vote, may I remind delegations that explanations of vote are limited to 10 minutes and should be made by delegations from their seats. I give the floor to the Russian Federation. You have the floor, sir.
President, we regret the fact that our proposal was not supported. Nevertheless, when we considered the resolution and substance and we make a decision, we need to clearly understand the nature of the issue before us today. And under paragraphs 2 and 3 of the UN Charter and the Rules of Procedure 83 and 85 of the General Assembly, decisions can be on important issues or on other issues. And to make them, we need a majority, 2/3 or a simple majority. So we'd be grateful for your clarification on this point. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation, and I give the floor to the Syrian Arab Republic. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my delegation will vote against the draft resolution A/72/L.58. In explanation of our position, we reiterate that based on the historical and geopolitical realities related to this issue, we believe that the best way forward is the continued handling of it within the framework of the bilateral relations between the Republic of Moldova and the Russian Federation, and in the framework of the OSCE. In this regard, Mr. President, my delegation further affirmed the following facts. First of all, matters relating to this draft resolution continue to fall under the mandate of the 1992 Convention on Principles for the Peaceful Settlement of the Armed Conflict in the Transdniester region of the Republic of Moldova. This convention is still in force and has been supplemented by additional protocol on the modalities of the presence of peacekeepers. Secondly, any dispute arising from the application of the Convention and the additional protocol shall be resolved in good faith and through consultations and direct contacts between the governments of the relevant states. Third of all, the internationally recognized 5+2 formula since 2005 is the best way to resolve conflicts in the Transnistria region. However, the effectiveness of this formula remains linked to the genuine political will of the concerned parties, away from attempts to involve the United Nations in this issue and for political reasons. Such practices will not serve to better the relations between these two countries and contradicts the efforts to maintain security and stability in that region. In this context, we recall that relations between the Russian Federation and the Republic of Moldova have been on the right track since the signing of the Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation between the two countries in 2001. Mr. President, based on the foregoing, my delegation believes that this draft resolution does not serve to improve the relations between the two countries and would jeopardize the OSCE framework, especially with the imbalanced presented language and the purely political approach. For that, we will vote against this draft resolution, and we call upon other states to do the same. Thank you, Mr. President.
Before proceeding to take a decision on draft resolution A/72/L.58, I wish to inform members that the President has been approached by several delegations concerning the majority required for the adoption of the draft resolution. Is there any objection to applying a simple majority requirement to draft resolution A/72/L.58? I see no objection. I therefore take it that a simple majority of the members present and voting is required for the adoption of draft resolution A/. I see a request by the Russian Federation for the floor. Is the Russian Federation making an objection?
No, I'd just like to make a statement before the vote. When should I do that? When's the best time? Apologies if I interrupted.
The chair recalls that the Russian Federation did make an intervention on the explanations of vote before the vote. But the chair is advised that if the Russian Federation wishes to make further explanation, the chair will now provide that opportunity. You have the floor.
Thank you, President. We were speaking on procedural issues and not on the substance. We regret that, given the lack of consensus in this room, we have an outlook for further address of unity in this assembly. Again, we would reaffirm that we are committed to the fulfillment by the Russian contingent of the mandate and tasks given to them in the Dniester, and real foundation for changing of this format has not yet been considered. Again, I'd repeat that we are fully committed to the process for a political solution to the Transnistrian issue. Again, steps made by Chisinau are destructive, and they break with the line stated by Moldova to resolve the conflict and contravene international agreements. I would like to again draw your attention to the fact that this initiative from the Moldovan delegation, if it is implemented, will break with the OSCE approach to achieve a settlement and efforts to achieve that. And it's serious if perhaps irreparable damage will be done to the reputation of the UN General Assembly. In this connection, we would call for a vote on this, and we would call on all responsible delegations to vote against it. Thank you very much.
I take it that a simple majority of the members present and voting is required for the adoption of draft resolution A/72/L.58. The Assembly will now take a decision on draft resolution A/72/L.58 entitled Complete and Unconditional Withdrawal of Foreign Military Forces from the territory of the Republic of Moldova. For your information, the draft resolution has closed for e-sponsorship. I now give the floor to the representative of the Secretariat.
Mr. President, I should like to announce that since the submission of the draft resolution, and in addition to those delegations listed on the L document, the foreign countries have also become co-sponsors of A/72/L58. The Czech Republic, Poland, and United Kingdom. If any other countries wish to co-sponsor A/72/L58, please signify by pressing the microphone button. I see none. Thank you, Mr. President.
A recorded vote has been requested. We shall now begin the voting process. Those in favor of draft resolution A/72/L.58, please signify. Those against, abstentions.
The General Assembly is now voting on draft resolution A/72/L58 entitled Complete and Unconditional Withdrawal of Foreign Military Forces from the Territory of the Republic of Moldova. Will all delegations confirm that their votes are accurately reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 64. Against, 15. Abstentions, 83. Draft resolution A/72/L.58 is adopted. Before giving the floor for explanations of vote after the vote, may I remind delegations that explanations of vote are limited to 10 minutes and should be made by delegations from their seats. I now give the floor to the representative of Vietnam.
Mr. President, my delegation voted in abstain on the draft resolution A/72L58 based on the following reasons. First, Vietnam supports the fundamental principles stated in the draft resolution that obligation of UN's member states is to comply with international law and act in accordance with principles enshrined in the UN Charter, particularly Article 2, namely, quote, to refrain from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state, end quote, or, quote, to settle their international disputes by peaceful means, end quote. Second, it is my delegation's regret that there was no consultation on the draft resolutions among member states during the drafting process. Should there be one, the content of the draft resolution would have been more comprehensive and balanced. Last but not least, Vietnam strongly believes that peaceful settlement of conflicts and disputes is key to sustainable peace and development. Therefore, we wish to call on concerned parties to double their efforts for constructive dialogue and to look for peaceful resolutions, benefit for all. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Vietnam and now give the floor to the Russian Federation.
President, we regret with the outcome of this vote. And politicization of the problem has happened at a time when we've seen real progress in negotiation between Transnistria and Chisinau. Last year, we signed an agreement on addressing most important issues of protecting people on both sides of the Dniester. This year, parties also achieved a useful agreement on launching a non-transport road transport across the area. This Moldovan approach to the General Assembly will not allow us to make further progress in negotiations, clearly. There's no secret that Russia is a guarantor of peace and stability in the region. Again, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the Moldovan leadership does not have unity as regards this resolution on the General Assembly. The outcome of the vote shows a clear divide in the UN members on this issue. And the absolute majority proposed to not participate or to abstain. If we want to overcome this divide, then we manage to. Then we should be able to. The vote in those in favour of this were many members of the OSCE who do not understand that the Moldovan issue is approach is undermining efforts to achieve this. We can see in this a classic example of double standards. And again, reaffirmation that the European Union does not plan on working to work on what has been achieved within the framework of international organizations. What is happening is that Brussels and states that sign up to its foreign policy is not interested in solving this, but in geopolitical games. We want to play this game in the region, and we're not going to continue with this. We would like a democratic approach. Currently, we've seen how serious the damage has been done to the process between these countries. It's a shame that all of these predictable negative consequences of this vote will be associated with the UN General Assembly, which is called to bring people together and not divide them. Thank you for your attention.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation. I now give the floor to the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. We earnestly hope that the issue under consideration of the Assembly today will be resolved through peaceful means. However, we think that this Assembly is not the appropriate forum to consider issues of this nature. As such, we voted against the draft resolution contained in the document A/72/L58. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran. We have heard the last speaker in explanation of vote after the vote. We will now hear statements after the adoption of the resolution. And I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the European Union. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the European Union and its member states. The candidate countries Turkey, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, Montenegro and Albania, as well as Ukraine and Georgia, aligned themselves with this statement. The EU reaffirms its support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Republic of Moldova within its internationally recognized borders. The EU highlights the importance of completing the processes that were started on the basis of commitments agreed at the OSCE Istanbul Summit in 1999. The EU recalls that the respect of the neutrality of the Republic of Moldova is a key element contributing to efforts on the peaceful resolution of the Transnistrian conflict. The EU welcomes the encouraging progress under the 5+2 process on the settlement of the Transnistrian conflict and remains committed to continue supporting it. The EU welcomes the protocol of the official meeting of the Permanent Conference for Political Questions in the framework of the negotiating process on the Transnistrian settlement held in Rome on 29 and 30th of May 2018 under the Italian chairmanship of the OSCE, the engagement shown by all participants in the 5+2 format, and underlines the importance of keeping a results-oriented process with a view to ensuring continued progress in the negotiations and tangible benefits to the people. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of the European Union. And with that, we have heard. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Republic of Moldova. You have the floor.
I thank you, Mr. President. The resolution just adopted reinforces the resolve of the Republic of Moldova to continue its efforts to ensure the complete and unconditional withdrawal of Russian forces from its territory, and reinforces our belief that our cause is just and legitimate. This General Assembly reaffirmed today once again that international law and UN Charter should prevail in the relationship between states, and we shall stand firm in defending those principles. Today, it is a great day for the people of the Republic of Moldova, who regained their trust that the international community stands by our side and that justice can be made. I am proud and pleased to stand in front of you, knowing that hundreds of thousands of my compatriots are watching us today in this truly historic moment for Moldova, when after more than 26 years, the UN General Assembly declared that Russian military presence is illegal and that it should be withdrawn. I cannot express enough how important it was not to deceive the expectations of the people of Moldova, and indeed all those who believe in diplomacy and the international community. We know that the decision to support this resolution was not very easy for many delegations. there have been many factors unrelated to the true scope of this resolution that aimed at creating confusion by misleading arguments and information. That makes our achievement today even more valuable and important. But we are not there yet. While this resolution is very important for us, this is just a small step in our consistent endeavors to achieve its ultimate goal. We are committed to a constructive dialogue with the concerned party in connection with the withdrawal of foreign military forces and armaments from the territory of the Republic of Moldova, as our only scope is to build trustful relations with all countries based on mutual respect and understanding, and of course based on international law. Finally, Mr. President, I wish to thank all those who supported this initiative, in particular the co-sponsors of this resolution, who believed in its merit and rightfulness from the very beginning, which was of great encouragement to persevere in our efforts. No one's support will be forgotten. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Republic of Moldova. And by that, we have heard the last speaker on this item. The General Assembly has thus concluded this stage of its consideration of Agenda Item 35.